A former AEW star has met with the TNA officials. We're going to talk about that. A new AEW show that now has been revealed and released. And of course, we got to talk a little bit about a WWE star who is officially retiring. Welcome back to the Ango Show. I want to kick things off with Stone Cold Steve Austin. This is a big one because a lot of people were talking about WrestleMania 40. Stone Cold Steve Austin did not hit a stunner on The Rock. WWE teased Stone Cold's return. WWE was rumored to have offered Stone Cold Steve Austin the return, but Stone Cold Steve Austin did not show up. Now, WWE there's a show on A&E called WWE Legends, and basically Stone Cold Steve Austin, on the newest episode, there was coverage of him versus Kevin Owens. And in this episode, what was really intriguing to me is Stone Cold Steve Austin and how they essentially end the episode. At the end of the episode, Stone Cold Steve Austin was asked if he would come back and do another match. Stone Cold Steve Austin had actually said that he was happy with what he did and he's pretty content with not wrestling anymore. I mean, that's essentially what he's saying. He was good with what happened, and it doesn't look like Stone Cold Steve Austin is going to be coming back anytime soon for a wrestling match. Now, obviously, for me, as a huge Steve Austin fan back in the day, great character, great wrestler, great performer. I mean, he literally is probably the biggest reason why wrestling fans even exist from the Attitude Era, because obviously Stone Cold Steve Austin's character was the thing that was really glass breaking. And that's not a pun that's like I'm using loosely. Like it really broke down doors for pro wrestling. He made pro wrestling cool. I think a lot of people could agree with that. I think Stone Cold Steve Austin as well, you know, in today's day and age, there really is not much left for this guy to do. I mean, even if he showed up at WrestleMania 40 and hit The Rock with a stunner, that wouldn't be progressing anything forward. It just would have been a nice callback to their long-time rivalry, which obviously would have been cool to see. I wasn't upset at all by seeing The Undertaker, but of course, you know, Stone Cold Steve Austin getting involved in WWE's television show today, there's really not many feuds or people he can even work with in general, and you also have to look back at that match with Kevin Owens. It wasn't like this 10-star banger, right? Stone Cold Steve Austin and Kevin Owens was a fun match, but if you're looking at it from the perspective of like a technical wrestling match, no, it's not ideal in that regard. For me, that doesn't matter. I enjoyed what they put out there. I don't want to see wrestlers, especially the ones I grew up watching that were my favorites. I don't want to see them grow up and grow old and then have a one-time match that absolutely sucks and they can't go and it's embarrassing, right? At some point, people do have to call it a career. Do I think Steve Austin has to do that? No, because I think he can replicate what he did with Kevin Owens and do it with CM Punk, which is obviously a feud that I've wanted to see for a very long time. And if you watch this channel, I've said that for a very long time. But we have to be realistic. If Steve Austin is content with what he's done, he doesn't plan on wrestling anymore. The only thing I can say is that I hope Steve Austin from time to time still shows up on WWE TV. And obviously, he's always going to be associated with WWE. So if he came in for a quick stunner, maybe some TV appearances, whatever, that's probably the most that we will get. It sucks that Steve Austin is not going to be wrestling one more match, but at the same time, too, I totally understand it. I want to talk about Meal in a Match. This is a new show from AEW. We talked about it. We thought it was going to be taking place on TNT or TBS. That was not the case because the show just dropped and it is on TBS's YouTube channel. And basically, RJ City and Renee Paquette, they are together. And what you really need to know is this. They sit down and do interviews and they kind of go back and you know, it's kind of like Table for Three from WWE. But this is like the AEW version. This show is going to be dropping once a month on the TBS YouTube channel, at least according to Fightful Select. And look, I thought this was great. They did the first episode with Eddie Kingston. Eddie Kingston is one of my favorites in AEW, so this was actually a really fun episode to watch. But also for me too, it's kind of like a nice thing, you know, when you have Eddie Kingston breaking down a match and watching something and they're showing footage and they're eating and they're talking. To me, for 25 minutes, it's a nice little difference. It's a different piece of content that I enjoy watching, right? There's questions, there's answers, there's breakdowns, there's all of these different things. But it is kind of shocking to me that TBS decided to put this on their YouTube channel. It's shocking to me that this is only going to be once a month because I like content like this. I wish this kind of content was on television. I wish it was on every single week, once a week for 4 weeks. I can't imagine these types of episodes, this type of show being very difficult to produce. I don't know why the decision was made for that. I do think to a certain extent with AEW, it would be nice to see them. It would be nice to see AEW get to a point where, long term they do more stuff like this. I'm just worried that this is not going to be a long lasting thing, which I think would suck because it's actually really cool. We'll see what happens. Obviously, I think a lot of us had expectations that AEW was going to be doing something new with TBS on TV. It turns out that is not the case. And that brings us to our final topic. Jose the Assistant from AEW. We know he was released from the company. Now, very interestingly enough, there are some reports that he was, in fact, at the TNA tapings. And, guys, I want to talk about this because you guys know I like Jose the Assistant. I thought he was a great wrestling manager. He was released on April 1st, 2024. A lot of people were wondering what would happen next. Now, what you guys need to know is this. Fightful Select had reported that Jose the Assistant was in fact present at the TNA Impact tapings over the weekend, and specifically he met with Tommy Dreamer. It is unknown as to why he met with Tommy Dreamer and TNA, but you guys do need to know that basically when Scott D'Amore left TNA, when he was fired from TNA, Tommy Dreamer was kind of the guy who, obviously he was part of the TNA creative team, but he's kind of like the guy that's like the key figure on the writing team per se. So why is he going there? Why is he meeting with them, right? That's the big thing. There's a lot of things that they can do here. TNA is smaller company, right? But they are on TV. They are going to different states and doing their show. In order for them to grow, you got to keep producing good content and high quality content. I think the reality is this. TNA is at a point in their career, over 20 years, they are truly hard to kill. But without a better TV deal, nothing really matters. I love what they're doing on television. I think they're producing some very fun TV. Jose the Assistant signing with TNA isn't going to bring TNA $1 trillion, but Jose the Assistant is a good asset. And I think when you bring in good assets and you help produce good television, maybe, just maybe, people will start giving it a chance. And that's really what people need to do, is just give TNA a chance. In order for them to grow, people need to give them a chance. I like him. There's a lot of different ways you could utilize him on television. I look forward to seeing what that may be. Now, with that being said, the one final thing that I really want to bring up, when you look at TNA and what they've done with Rich Swann and Top Dollar, when you look at what they've done with the system, they have found ways to utilize their TV time to explore different creative options with their talent. And I think what really typically happens with that is there is a constant refresh. Whether it's characters or storylines or whatever, it's like something new every single week. There's always something fresh happening on the product. So, obviously Mike Santana's in TNA now, and people are looking at Mike Santana and they're like, hey, what's the plan with him? What are they going to do with him? The reality is, when you look at all of these different signings, you need to bring them in and then find a way to utilize them in the grand scheme of things. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the Ango Show.